Good morning. Hey. Okay, so before I go too far, I have to give you the disclaimer. And my wife always hates it when I start saying something like that. But here's my disclaimer. Okay? This message today, I've brought to share with you is something I like to consider as a hybrid. Okay? That is, it's not a straight deductive 1, 2, 3, 4 and a poem. Okay? It's not a straight narrative, which you heard several weeks ago, Luke chapter 5. It's not necessarily an expository sermon, although, let's face it, every sermon from the Bible is expository, really, because we're looking at the text. But our thought of expository is one text, don't leave it, stay right there and camp out. So we're kind of going to do that today as we look at the parable that Jesus shared with us. And you know, it took 40 years to rebuild the temple in Herod's day. And during that time, hey, there was plenty of work to be had. If you needed a job, there was work to be done, from the lowliest labor right on to the most skilled worker, the skilled trade. You had work. But when the temple was done, when it was complete, and back to normal, not much work to go around. Times were tough. Financially, it was very, very difficult. And many people were struggling in their finances. Even King Herod had a difficult time for a while. And so he needed some quick cash. And so he took the only thing that he had of great value, something called the Star of Euphrates, the most extravagant diamond in the entire land, and he went to the local pawn shop. He brings it in, he sets it down, and the pawnbroker looks at it and says, wow, this is really, really, really beautiful. I mean, this is really beautiful. I'll tell you what, I'll give you 100,000 denarii for it right now. Now, a denarius is a daily wage. It's a day's wage. So he's 100,000 daily wages. That's a pretty good payout. But Herod, no, he doesn't want to hear it. He says, no, listen. For real, I am King Herod, and I paid 1,000,000 denarii for that thing not 6 months ago. Pawnbroker looks at him and he says, when you wish to pawn a star, makes no difference who you are. And some of you will get that later. Okay, so I'm fairly positive that never really happened, okay? But it illustrates your point, that when the temple was completed, times were tough. And there was some very difficult financial hardships that were taking place in the entire land of Palestine. All the people were feeling the crunch. And because of that, we see in our parable today that there was a man who was walking along that Jericho Road, and he was robbed. Tradition states that after the temple was built and people didn't have money, they would camp out on the Jericho Road and they would rob people. And they would beat them up and they would steal their stuff. And that, it's sad, but that's how they were able to survive. And so we see that's what happens in the text today. Now, to get to that point, though, we have to back up a little bit because it all begins with a lawyer. This expert in the law, and he wants to know how to have eternal life. And so he asks Jesus a question. Who is my neighbor? I like it because the text says he wanted to justify himself, and so he asked, who is my neighbor? Now, he asked the wrong question. Of course, we know that lawyers do ask some very good questions, but they can ask the wrong questions as well. This was definitely a wrong question. You know, I think about the lawyer who was cross-examining a police officer in a court of law. And he says, well, he asked him many questions. He says, all right, I need to ask you a few questions, and I need your honest answers. Do you trust the people that you work with, the men and women who serve with you on the police force? And the officer said, yes. Yes, I trust them. So the lawyer asked, to what extent do you trust them? Trust them with your own life? He said, I trust them with my own life, yes, but not only that, I trust them with the lives of my family members. The lawyer said, okay, well, answer this question. You look like you're in pretty good shape. Do you work out in the weight room here? That's in the police academy? He says, yeah, I train there. I said, all right, well, do you use a locker? You don't put your stuff in there? He said, yeah, I put my things in there. The lawyer's going somewhere with this. He says, all right, do you lock the locker while you're working out? Says, yeah, actually, I put a lock on my locker. Yeah, I lock my belongings. Now the lawyer thinks he has it. He says, okay, so here's the deal. So you tell me, now you're surrounded by all these police officers, right? Your fellow co-workers, these ones that you say you trust with your life, you trust with the lives of your family members, and here you are locking your personal belongings. How can you explain that? And the officer said, well, it's very simple. The courthouse is right next door, and lawyers come through here all the time. Man, I hope we don't have any lawyers in the house. Like, I can't take credit for them over there, okay? I don't know what that's all about. But, he asked the wrong question. He asked, who is my neighbor? He should have asked, to whom can I be a neighbor? That's the right question. Because let's face it, there are people that are hurting, and they are broken, and they are beaten, and they are half dead, and they're walking along life's path on that Jericho Road. And we're going to encounter that. And I think that all of life is a Jericho Road. And you are in this parable. Yeah, all of you. Even the ones that laughed at the lawyers. You are in this parable today. Seriously, there are 4 philosophies that we're going to see as we get rolling in here, but you are part of this parable. And so today, maybe you are the one who is wounded. Maybe you are an orphan. Or a widow. Our widows, just that group keeps growing and growing. Maybe today you are one who's been robbed. Maybe you're sick. Maybe you're unemployed. Maybe you're handicapped. Maybe you're lonely. Maybe you're an abused person, either in the past or present. Maybe you've been forgotten by your children or your grandchildren. Maybe you have been neglected by your mother, rejected by your father, shunned by your family, and despised by your friends. Maybe today you are the one who is wounded. I can't help but think about an illustration that George Paul shared a long time ago. George Paul, again, one of my professors from my undergrad studies, still the president of Summit Theological Seminary, and he said if you take an opal, now he thought an opal was a pretty ugly stone. I kind of agree with him. I'm a guy, I'm sorry. You women are probably like, oh, they're beautiful. I'm sorry, I'm a guy, it looks kind of ugly. But he says if you take an opal and you put it in your hand and you hold it, just for a few minutes, just the heat of your hand will cause that stone to change to a beautiful color. And so I started thinking about that. I started thinking about those around us who are hurting and broken, half dead. And they kind of remind me of that. They feel a little bit ugly on the outside. They might even look a little bit ugly. And what I mean is broken and hurting. Not physical appearance, but I'm just saying broken. Hurting. There's nothing that would draw us to them. But on the inside of that hand, when you open it, there's something that changes. And so they just need that warm touch of a human hand. Now, I think about a geode. Talk about an ugly rock. Actually, I have a picture to share with you of a geode. If we can. There you go. Okay, so you can see the round one. That's ugly. It looks like the moon. Not as shapely as the moon. But it's an ugly looking rock, but there's nothing that's pretty about that thing at all. Nothing. Not a single thing. But when you cut it in half, you can see what's inside of it. And that's just a cut open. That's not anything that was doctored or anything. They just cut the thing in half. That's how beautiful it is on the outside. And so again, we get the same kind of concept. Some of those who are hurting, some of those who are broken, some of those who are aching, some of those who are half dead, might be the most beautiful people on the inside. And just like that opal, they just need the warm touch of a human hand. So today, you might be the wounded. But today, you might be the one who wounds. Let's face it, we all hurt people from time to time. We do. We say things, or we do things, or we don't do things, or we don't say things. In some ways, we hurt people. I have a book in my office. It's a great book. The title is really simple. It might sound confusing, but the title is Hurt People, Hurt People. And the point is, when we are hurting, we naturally hurt others. And so today you might be the one who wounds. You might be the one who is hurting others. Now, no, don't hear me wrong. I don't think you're the person who's going to leave here, go find somebody, and beat them up, and steal their money, and leave them half dead. I'm not saying that. But, like I said earlier, remember there are 4 philosophies that we can gain from this parable? So let's look at those 4 philosophies, because you're going to fit into one of those 4. It's just inevitable. And so the first philosophy is the philosophy of the thieves. And they say, what's yours is yours, and I'm going to take it. Then you got the philosophy of the priest and the Levite. And they say, what's mine is mine, and I'm going to keep it. Then you got the philosophy of the Good Samaritan. Hey, what's mine is mine, but I will share it with you. I think we always forget the 4th philosophy in this parable. And that is the philosophy of the innkeeper. And he says, what's mine is mine, but I'll sell it to you. So you might be the one today who wounds. One of those 4 philosophies are going to fit with you. Now, the one who wounds, let's face it, like I said, I don't believe you're going to go out, you're going to walk away from here, and you're going to go beat up people, but you can hurt people just as badly. Notice in the text earlier, it says, there came down a certain priest. Now, that's important for several reasons. First of all, Jerusalem is up, okay? And Jericho is down, okay? In fact, Jerusalem is 2,500 feet above sea level. Jericho is 1,200 feet below sea level, so a difference of 3,700 feet, all right? Plus, it's a 15-mile walk from one city to the other. So I don't know that it looks like the picture up here on the screen, but I would imagine it'd be very similar to that. So it's a long walk, and there came down a certain priest. So we know from the text, he's coming down, which means he's leaving Jerusalem. Now that's important because he could have just been working at the temple. He may have just offered some sacrifices. He may have been there ministering to some of God's people. And just moments later, he's walking along this Jericho Road, and there's somebody who's broken and beaten, robbed, and half dead. And he doesn't stop. He doesn't help. Just passes by him. On the other side of him, he looks like this. I'm good. Passing by on the other side. Now, in all fairness, well, let's face it, the Levite did the same thing. So let's trash talk the Levite for just a moment first. Okay? He did the same thing. All right? He passed by on the other side. Now, all priests were Levites, but not all Levites were priests. Okay? But this Levite was probably helping at the temple. He was probably an assistant of some sort, and so he passes by on the other side. Same thing. He could have been there assisting in some sort of a worship capacity, and there he is, passing by. Okay, so let me get back to it. Now, in all fairness, all right, the law did state that the priests were not allowed to touch dead bodies. Okay, so I'm good with that. I'm good with that. But honestly, if you just look at the guy, chances are good you can probably see if he's breathing or not. He wasn't that nosy. He wasn't that curious. That priest and Levite just looked, saw the person, and passed by on the other side. Now, that is significant because here's the deal. You might not be the one who goes out and robs people. You might not beat them up, but you might be someone who passes by on the other side. Honestly, how many people in Arizona, right here in Phoenix, do we see that are hurting, that are broken, that are shattered, they're half dead, and we pass by on the other side? So, today you might be the wounded. You might be the one who wounds. But maybe you're the healer. That Samaritan, he got involved. He got, I believe he got his hands dirty. I believe he might have even got his hands bloody. He might have hurt his back. Think about this. Here he is, and he sees this Jew laying on the ground, and the Bible says he picks him up, he puts him on his own donkey, right? He cleans him up, He uses his own wine to pour on the wounds, to disinfect the wounds. He uses his own oil to pour on there to be like a soothing agent on the wounds. He lifts him, he puts him on his donkey. Now let's be fair, we don't know what these guys look like, okay? This Samaritan could have got hurt. Could have sprained the muscle, pulled a hammy, anything. I mean, this could be Andre the Giant laying here, and Pee Wee Herman. We don't know. He picks him up, he puts him on there, and he, more than that, he brings him into town, he finds this inn, he goes and he pays for the night, he's taking care of him through the night, even with more oil, more wine, trying to make sure that his wounds are healing the best he can. And then in the morning when he leaves, he says to the innkeeper, here's the deal, here's a bunch of cash, and you know what, I want you to take care of him. And if it costs more than this, that's okay. When I come back around, I'll give you the money that I owe you. He goes way out of his way, and what does Jesus say about that guy? He says, go and do likewise. And you might be thinking, oh, okay, I could help somebody who's hurting. Yeah, that's not that much of a big deal. But would you help somebody that hated you? Would you help someone that despised you? I mean, you need to understand the dynamic that's going on here, okay? So some of the background between the Jews and the Samaritans, all right? You've got Jews over here, okay? And they're just happy-go-lucky, and they're just, living their day, and everything's good. And along come the Assyrians. It's back in the 500s BCs. They come in, and they just attack them, and they defeat them. And so they take a whole bunch of Jews. Now, not all of them. Some are still left there, but they take a whole big group, and they pick them up. They really did just pick them up just like this. No, they didn't. But they brought them over here, and they put them down over here somewhere else with a different people group, okay? Trying to get their bearings all out of whack. There's no comfortable surroundings. It's completely different. They're not in their home. Everything's different. It is true captivity. They're here. But remember, not all of them were taken. So you've got this group of just a few Jews that are over here. And what do the Assyrians do? Well, they take this Arab people group and they drop them in there. And now they're mixed. And you know what's going to happen. After a while, they're going to intermarry. And they have children. Those children are the Samaritans. They're half Jew and half not. That's what the Jews thought. Half Jew and half not. It didn't matter. They weren't purebred, 100% pedigree Jewish. Boy, they had some mixed blood in there, and they were dogs. And we can't even say it was a love-hate. It was a hate-hate. So honestly, would you do that for your enemy? The person that despises you and wants you dead, would you be able to stop and pick them up and help them and do all these things? Oh, we'd probably say yeah, because we're sitting in church, right? That's Jesus. That's our church answer. Yes, of course. But honestly, think about what he's doing. He's doing something that is very unheard of in that day. He got involved. He got involved. Jesus said, go. Do likewise. So, maybe you are the wounded today. Maybe you're the one who wounds. Maybe you're the healer. But maybe you're the innkeeper. Now, the innkeeper is the one who says, I'll get involved. I'll help. But what's in it for me? I'll help out, but there's a cost. And I bring this up because I know some innkeepers in this world. Not here. You're safe. Everybody just do this. Just breathe. Okay? I know some innkeepers out of this state. I've met them. I've heard them say things like, well, yeah, I'll take that person over to where they need to go, but I need some gas money. Or, yeah, I'll bring them over there and give them a meal, but who's reimbursing me? I'll get involved. If there's something in it for me, yeah, you bet, I'll help out. I'll scratch your back, but you gotta be scratching my back too. It's terrible. That's a terrible philosophy to have. And the sad thing is that there are Christians that have that philosophy. I'll help, I'll get involved. But what's in it for me? Micah 6:8 is one of my favorite verses in the entire Old Testament. Ron talked about it yesterday at our meeting, and I said, Ron, I'm already way ahead of you, man. I'm way over here, and you're way back here still. I'm way ahead of you. Already planning to talk about it. Micah 6:8, what does the Lord require of you? Oh man, It's very simple. It's threefold. Act justly, love mercy, walk humbly with God. And sometimes when we act justly and we love mercy, we exhibit mercy, it's tough to, it's really tough to walk humbly. It is. And if you're an innkeeper, it's tough to do any of those things. Act justly. It's not really just. You're saying, I want to be justified by helping you. I want something in return. You're not really loving mercy or showing mercy. You're saying, I'm going to get mercy, but I want it right back, buddy. And there's no walking humbly because you want people to know that you're involved and you're helping out and you're doing something and you're working. So I hope you're not the innkeeper. I hope that's not where you're at. But let's face it, like I said, there are 4 philosophies this morning. The priest, the Levite, the thief, the Samaritan, and the innkeeper. I know that counts out 5, but I'm counting the priest and the Levite together. And so where do you fit? Are you like the thieves who say, what's yours is yours, but I'm going to take it? I hope not. I really hope not. Are you like the priest and the Levite who say, mine is mine, and I'm going to keep it? I hope not. I hope you're not like the innkeeper who says, what's mine is mine, but I'll sell it to you. I really hope you're not that one. I hope you're like the Levite, or excuse me, like the Levite. There you go. Good night. I hope you're like this good Samaritan who says, what's mine is mine, but I will share it with you. There's only one in there that's going to fit. Now I want to do something radical this morning. I want to share with you a poem. I don't think I've ever shared one since I've been here. But this one is so fitting, it's so succinct, it connects everything so beautifully to the message that we're looking at. This is what it says. A soldier called his mother from San Francisco Bay. Said, Mother, I'm coming home soon, but listen to what I say. I want to bring a buddy. Please, Mom, if you don't mind. He has one leg, one arm, one eye, and he needs your love so kindly. The mother told her soldier with a harsh and bitter tone, don't you bring your buddy here. You find him another home. We don't have a place for him, if it is how you say. We sure don't need a handicap getting in our way. Then later came a telegram. The soldier boy was dead. He took his life, they found a note, and this is what it said. No, don't bring your buddy here. His mother's words were they. We sure don't need a handicap getting in our way. At last the wheels stopped turning as the mother met the train, and she came to get her only son with tears that fell like rain. She stared into that cold hard box and kissed her son goodbye, and there he was, not handicapped. One leg, one arm, one eye. We must never pass by the hurting, the broken, and the half-dead in this life. We are a royal priesthood, and we are called to a higher standard of living. And there are going to be people that we are going to encounter as we walk along this life's road that are hurting, that are broken, that are beaten, that are robbed, and that are half-dead. And how dare we pass by on the other side? Because in a way, all of life is a Jericho Road. Let's pray. Father, thank you